If you're a card maker that likes to get a jump on their Christmas cards in the summer, then this video is for you. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I am sharing some of the latest Waffle Flower release, which includes a beautiful assortment of holiday products, including a bunch of supplies to make card backgrounds, like background dies, foil plates, and stencils. Not only that, but they have plenty of supplies to finish off those cards, including beautiful sentiments and images. So today I'm going to focus on 3 ways to make backgrounds, and then we'll complete the cards at the end. The first way to make holiday card backgrounds is to use one of their beautiful background dies, and I'm going to share a bunch of techniques to make that stitched snowflake pattern really stand out. So first we're going to use the Dash Snowflake panel die. It's an A2 panel die. Of course, when you're cutting with an A2 panel, the best thing you can do is rotate it just a little bit so it's not straight on in your die cut machine. That's going to get you a better, cleaner cut. And especially with this one, you can see all the little stitch details or dash details on that. So one way is to use a metallic cardstock. Another way is to start with some colorful cardstock. This time I had an A2 piece of cardstock, and I'm going to put it right inside the rectangle of the lines and then tape it to the die with some pixie tape. This is an easy way to use an A2 piece of cardstock with an A2 panel die, but make sure that you get the whole thing cut. And again, I'm going to have it at an angle so it doesn't bump through the machine, and you get a nice clean cut and great impression on those snowflakes. Of course, just a plain white cardstock is also great. So now I want to use several different ways to enhance that background die. And the first way is to ink blend on top of the white cardstock. So I'm using Distress Oxide ink, and I'm using Waffle Flower blending brushes. I want a light coverage of this because I still want to see those snowflakes. So if I do too dark of a coverage with a foam blender, they're gonna get lost. I really want them to be nice and light, and then I'm gonna spritz some water on those Distress Oxide background to make it really stand out with those blotches of white that come out from the ink. And then I'm gonna use some Dina Wakley acrylic in a spray bottle, and I'm just gonna tap the top to make some spritzes of white on top of this whole panel. And that acrylic will really stand out on the background. You can really see it, and it looks different than the water droplets as well. Another way is to use the colorful cardstock, and this time instead of using colorful ink, we'll use white pigment ink. So this time I am using a foam blender because the white ink is a little lighter, and so it won't be as heavy on top of the colorful cardstock. I still want to see the blue, but I do want to enhance those dashed snowflakes, and the white ink really does that well on top of that colorful cardstock. It really enhances the look and brings out those elements. I thought a little more of the spritzed acrylic on top because I was having fun, and it is so hot here that I am definitely thinking that snow would be great, but I know I don't enjoy snow. It's the polar opposite of what we're experiencing now. The second way to make some amazing holiday card backgrounds is to use one of their new stencils. And I'm going to share several different mediums to use with this new stencil to create amazing backgrounds. Okay. So to use the Snowy Pines stencil for Waffle Flower, it is a 6x6 stencil. I'm going to place an A2 piece of cardstock behind it, and then I'm going to tape some pixie tape on the back. So you can use your Waffle Flower stencil mat when you have a piece of paper that is the same size as the stencil. This time I had an A2 piece, so I'm going to use some pixie tape to hold it all in place. And I'm going to go back to that white pigment ink. A good white pigment ink is great for the holidays, for snowy looks. And this white pigment ink with the Waffle Flower brush over the stencil on top of that green cardstock is such a pretty look. And check out how white this pigment ink is. I really love it. Definitely let it dry because it is a pigment ink. It takes a little bit longer. For another piece of colorful cardstock in the stencil, I'm going to treat the cardstock with anti-static powder tool, and then I'm going to place the stencil on top just like I did last time with some pixie tape on the back and then a little pixie tape on the front to hold it in place. This time I'm using a Waffle Flower shader brush. This is the number 2, and I'm going to use some Versamark ink. So the shader brushes are a great way to apply the Versamark ink over stencils because you don't have to apply the Versamark to the entire stencil. You know, it takes a little bit to get that Versamark off because it is sticky. And so I like to apply it just in the places that I need it. I don't really want Versamark over an entire 6x6 stencil if I can avoid it. So these shader brushes are perfect for that. Now I am going to pour some sparkling silver embossing powder on top of the entire panel and then just pour off the excess. And look at how cute those little pine trees and snowflakes look when they are covered in embossing powder. And then especially when you heat set them, it melts the embossing powder and the glitter together. Another way to use those Waffle Flower shader brushes and this stencil is to do selective inking. And you've seen me use these brushes before. You know how much I love them, especially for this technique. So this time I am going to create a fun rainbow, light and bright pastel kind of color combination on the pines and the snow for something totally different. I do love traditional Christmas colors, but I just, especially when it's hot and I'm making Christmas cards, gravitate towards those brighter colors. So you just peel that back after you're done and let's check that out. It's so much fun, something a little bit different and something you couldn't achieve if you were using a large foam blender or a large blending brush. So these little shader brushes are perfect for that. And of course, everybody loves foiling these days, and Waffle Flower has some amazing new foil plates to create gorgeous holiday backgrounds. Okay, now let's move on to the foil plates. So Waffle Flower has a great foil plate for backgrounds. It's called Scattered Stars foil plate. So I have an A2 piece of cardstock, my foil with the silver side facing up. I'm going to pull out the glimmer machine and then cover it with a plate and then sort of a piece of cardstock that's about 110 pounds. I have found that works for me. You have to find the sandwich that works for you, for the foil that you use, for the foil plates that you use. But for this one, when I used both plates, I was over foiling. So that's always the sign to me to go to one plate and a piece of cardstock. So when you peel that off, just check out those gold stars. Isn't that amazing? And such an easy, beautiful background. Waffle Flower also has some foiled sentiments. This is the Christmas Duo. So there's a script and then there's kind of a print that has open letters. And so I figured while I have the foiling out, I also did some scattered stars in the rainbow and the silver as well. While I'm foiling, I like to do all my foiling at once because I put my machine away when I'm done, so it's not sitting out on my desk. So get all your sentiments, your backgrounds, everything foiled that you're going to get foiled all in one. That ensures also that your machine is heated up and that it's going to do its job quickly and easily. Waffle Flower also has the classic Snowflake foil plate. So again, while I had the foiling machine out, I did a bunch of snowflakes as well. I am using gold foil, silver foil, and rainbow foil today so that I have lots of options. Since I made a whole bunch of backgrounds, I want to have enough sentiments pre-die cut to easily throw these cards together. So again, they have dies to cut out the foil plates here. So I'm cutting out the Merry Christmas and the other script Merry Christmas as well, just by holding those dies in place around the foiling. Be sure not to get pixie tape on the foil itself because it can peel up some of that foiled accent. So once I have that die held in place, I just run it through the die cut machine, and now I have a bunch of backgrounds. The first one is a white cardstock dash snowflake. Then you have the ink blending. I did a vellum as well. You have the heat embossing, the foiling, the ink blending again. So now it's time to make some cards. And
I felt like
Now that
this
we have
Merry
all our
Christmas was
backgrounds
getting
created,
lost on the
let's
white
use
with
some
the
of their
stars, so
other
I
new
decided to
supplies to
cut out
turn them
the
into
Merry
cards.
Christmas die, the shadow die, out of pink cardstock. And I'm going to slightly offset that Merry Christmas sentiment on that pink cardstock. Then I'm going to use the rest of the pink cardstock as a mat for the background. I've cut down the star background to about 4 by 5 1/4, so I can just place it right on top. And you'll never see that weird cutout in the background because it's going to go on a card base in the end, right? So then I'm just going to pop up this Merry Christmas, and oh my goodness, the pink helps a lot, and it's such a fun color combination as well. So I decided to get on this train and do this several times over. So I've cut down the white pigment ink over the blue cardstock, and I've matted it on some silver foil cardstock, and then I'm gonna mat the Merry Christmas. It's silver foil on white cardstock. I'm going to mat it on some silver. So lots of frosty looks on this card, and then just some foam tape to pop it up. Yes, you could absolutely add some embellishments, and I will in another card coming up, but these are great cards that you can do all the steps and then really mass produce. So they're not that complicated, but they do just look kind of fabulous because of the foiling, because of the stitch detail lines and the die. Okay, so this foil cardstock is from Simon Says Stamp. I did again cut out of the middle of it the Merry Christmas shadow so that I could mat this as well, and then just check out all that foil. Absolutely love rainbows for Christmas. I think this is going to be definitely what I'm going to be doing this year. They're just such a happy, shiny, fun way to create Christmas cards. Okay, here's kind of the more subdued rainbow. I decided for this one not to cut it down, not to mat it, and just to pop up the Merry Christmas with that script in gold foil and leave this one clean and simple. Again, if you do all your foiling at once, this could be a fun mass-produced card. Okay, for this one, I am using the Heat Embossed Snowy Pine stencil background, matted on some gold glitter cardstock, and then just popping up the white Merry Christmas with the gold glitter. This one, because of the pink background, it doesn't get lost, so I didn't need a shadow behind the die cut there. Okay, for this one, I am using the white cardstock with the dashed snowflake. Again, I'm not going to mat it. I am just going to put some foam tape behind the sentiment, which is a rainbow of foil of Merry Christmas. And again, because of that rainbow color, you don't need a mat behind the sentiment. It really just stands out on its own. And again, that would be an easy one to mass produce. I did decide that this one needed a little something extra. So in the center of each snowflake, I put an enamel dot from Waffle Flower. Just, it makes me think of Christmas bulbs and that rainbow look. So I think that this would, again, maybe be a little bit too much for mass production just because of all those enamel dots. That would be a pain, but it would still be fun. You could do it for a special card. Okay, so this is one of the classic snowflakes that I did foil, and then I did just fussy cut it out because I wanted to place it on the background that I had already created, the dash snowflake with the ink blending. And I have two of the sub-sentiments from the Merry Christmas Duo stamp set. One says wishing you a very, and then the bottom one says Merry Christmas. And there are a lot of little sub-sentiments in that stamp set that are going to play really well with the rest of the set and with the foiled Merry Christmas too. So I didn't do a lot of that this time around, but it's a very nice option to have. Those sub-sentiments are very sweet and endearing. Okay, so the next card is going to be, Okay, for this one, I did decide to use the Rainbow Merry Christmas and the Rainbow Snowflake on the scattered stars background. So this scattered stars, the silver one, I had a few that I kind of messed up. They were a little smudgy. So I think having two elements on the card hid those little mess ups, and then just matting it on some silver foil cardstock in the back. And again, just so much foiling that it makes it look like you spent hours on this, even though it was a pretty easy card to create. For the Snowy Pine stencil of white pigment ink on green cardstock, I'm going to treat it with anti-static powder. Make sure that those snowy pines are fully dry. I let them dry a day overnight because that pigment ink really just does take some time to dry. And then I'm going to pour some gold embossing powder on top and then heat set it. And I love this sub-sentiment. I'll show you how detailed you can get with this stamp. Even with heat embossing, it comes out really, really great. So it says, "Hope this Christmas brings you love, peace, and happiness." And it's a tiny little font, but it comes out perfect if you use like a Versamark ink and some fine detail embossing powder. Check that out. Love that, and super, super simple again. Okay, for this panel, I didn't actually show this panel. This was what I was talking about. If you go too dark and you use a foam blender on that snowflake, you lose the snowflakes. I didn't want to throw it away, so I am going to stamp and heat emboss Merry Christmas from the Duo stamp set right on top, and then use some white embossing powder and heat set that. This way we get to use this panel even though it didn't really work for the purposes that I thought it was going to. I'm going to use the whole panel for the background as well, just like I've done in some of the other cards. So just put some tape runner all around except for the opening area, and then place the silver die cut dashed snowflake panel on top. I've cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4, and then just pop up that die cut on top. And then this time I added just 2 different colors of enamel dots, some blue and some purple, and just trying to get them to be organic and placed all around the middle of those snowflakes. They add such a nice little touch. So there are all the cards. That's 10 cards that I created really quickly and easily using these fun background supplies and other waffle flower stamps, dies, and stencils.
Getting a jump on your holiday cards now in July is a great way to figure out if there is a design that you love that you can mass produce, or just getting started on them now means that you'll have plenty of holiday cards made before the holiday rush rolls around. I always love hearing what your favorites are, so let me know if there's any supply from today's video that is making your wish list. As always, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon.